stand before a joint session of Congress to lay out his vision for the next 4 years. A primetime moment that will cap an eventful opening stretch to his second term. Before we get you the latest from Washington, a look at the top headlines we're tracking currently. The US and Ukraine are reportedly on track to sign a minerals deal, despite last week's outrageous Oval Office clash, after the Ukrainian president has said that the verbal tussle was regrettable and he was ready to sign a deal. Trump says he wanted to announce the agreement during his upcoming address to Congress. Donald Trump will probably announce tariff compromise deals with Canada and Mexico soon. This is what the US Commerce Secretary has said. Arab leaders have endorsed a $53 billion plan to rebuild Gaza under the future administration of the Palestinian Authority in a rushed attempt to present an alternative to Trump's idea for a property development-style plan. NASA's two stuck astronauts are just a few weeks away from finally returning to Earth after 9 months in space. Sunita Williams and Butch Wilmore have to wait until their replacements arrive at the International Space Station before they can check out later this month. Our big focus, Donald Trump speaks to Congress in a live address where he is expected to outline his plans and priorities for his second term. You must note that some Democratic lawmakers have discussed disrupting the speech, but why is this a big deal? Well, in Trump's first 6 weeks, he started a federal government overhaul driven by DOGE, launched a mass deportation campaign, and also imposed tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China. So this address comes days after Trump's heated Oval Office meeting with Vice President Vance and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky as well. But this is Trump's first major speech, 6 weeks into a presidency that has seen the president empowering Elon Musk, his billionaire sidekick, to dramatically downsize that federal workforce of theirs, threatening American allies with tariffs and coddling longtime American foes. Jessica Stone has been tracking all the latest developments for us. She joins us live from Washington, D.C. at the moment. Jessica, we're hearing that Trump is preparing to announce a minerals deal with Ukraine in this address that's coming up, despite his advisors cautioning that a deal has yet to be signed and that situation could change. Jessica, take us through what's expected.
So we've just received some excerpts of the president's speech in which he says that he will announce something that he will sign later this week on critical minerals in the USA. So we don't know whether that's pertaining to this Ukraine deal or a separate deal. But in fact, critical minerals getting a special mention in the joint session of Congress speech, and certainly released early in the excerpts. Among the other priorities that he's highlighting, his economic priorities. He talks about the price of eggs, blaming the price of eggs on, and I believe he's coming into the House chamber now to make his remarks. Let's listen in.
Right, Jessica, as we can see through live visuals coming in, we can see Melania Trump, the First Lady, who's entered already. Well, after Zelensky has said that the verbal tussle was regrettable and he was ready to sign a deal, Donald Trump said he wanted to announce an agreement during his upcoming address to Congress. We are, of course, waiting for the US president to address the Congress in a short while from now. Jessica, over to you. Take us through what's expected as we await the US president's entrance in just a few moments.
That's right. I'm hearing the claps now in the House chamber for President Trump, but he is not yet in the chamber, as you mentioned. He's also going to talk about tariffs and talk about reciprocal tariffs in particular, because, of course, that's part of his justification for how he wants to approach bringing more businesses back to the United States to create their products and evade tariffs. He also will talk about the end of the Ukraine war, saying, quote, "I am also working tirelessly to end the savage conflict in Ukraine. Millions of Ukrainians and Russians have been killed or wounded in this horrific and brutal conflict with no end in sight. The United States has sent hundreds of billions of dollars to support Ukraine's defense." So expect more on that, which is certainly not a surprise given how much has moved on that issue during the day. He also will talk about border security and call on Congress to fund more border security in the upcoming spending bill that is yet to be passed in Congress. If it is not passed, it will create a government shutdown, which will mean that the government is even more paralyzed than it is by all the discussion of layoffs in the federal workforce. He will speak specifically about the border, saying, quote, "Since taking office, my administration has launched the most sweeping border and immigration crackdown in American history, and we quickly achieved the lowest numbers of illegal border crossers ever recorded," something that his border czar, Tom Homan, said earlier today. We now see Pete Hegseth coming into the House chamber. He is, of course, the newly installed defense secretary. He has been part of the Ukraine equation in lifting some of the cyber operations against Russia as part of trying to bring Moscow to the table to continue these talks and deepen the engagement with Moscow, something that Washington has not had in more than 3 years. There has really been no leader-to-leader level talks, much less Secretary of State to Foreign Minister level talks. And now you see Kristi Noem, the Homeland Security Chief, coming in there. She, of course, is a big part of the equation on the border, along with Tom Homan, the border czar. And in front of her, EPA Secretary Lee Zeldin, the former congressman of New York. And now I think we have, let's see, we have RFK Jr., the HHS, Health and Human Services Secretary, behind Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary. So all of the cabinet coming in one by one, greeting people. This is very much, especially early in administration, a sort of victory lap that these representatives of the cabinet take. You know, they haven't been in office very long. I mean, Howard Lutnick was just being sworn in last week, February 24th. So they are newly installed. They are obviously raring to go to accomplish this president's agenda. I would note that a big difference between Trump 2.0 and Trump 1.0, these cabinet members are much more in line with what he says he wants to do for the American people. There is much less voices within his administration that are going against, especially on the issue of tariffs, I would note. And there's RFK Jr. There behind Howard Lutnick. He, of course, is a big part of the win for Donald Trump. There were a number of voters who were going to go for RFK Jr. or for other third-party candidates prior to him throwing in his lot with President Trump. And there you see J.D. Vance, the vice president, who, of course, is the youngest vice president in some time at just 40 years old. There's his wife, Usha Vance, who he met in law school. And we've got Mike Johnson, who's also, right, of course, the Speaker of the House, sitting next to J.D. Vance. So that's to kind of lay out of the land, and we're just now waiting on the president.
Well, as we wait for the president, Jessica, Trump's campaign advisors, we understand, have chosen the unifying theme of renewal of the American dream. But if Trump's past speeches are any indication, are we likely to see his address being in his signature style, so big, loud, and self-congratulatory?
We're certainly likely to see President Trump being who he is in front of all those cameras, the consummate showman, the producer, and the storyteller. And I think we definitely will see those things on tap tonight. I mean, this is a president who has rolled out, I think he's going to say tonight in his excerpt, 100 executive orders. He wants to talk about the volume that he's putting out there on the table in terms of how many initiatives he is putting forward. He wants to say to the American people, look what I'm doing for you. I'm making good on my campaign promises. He will also, of course, need to address the economic impact of those decisions, whether it's on the markets that we're seeing fall over the last 2 days in response to the tariff announcement and the retaliatory tariff announcement, whether it's in response to what happened on Friday with that showdown in the Oval Office with President Zelensky. There is a lot to talk about that's forward momentum, but certainly bears explanation by this White House. And there are certainly critics who are very fearful that some of these economic steps that he's taking will actually put the U.S. into recession. And having won the White House largely based on a promise to renew the American economy and renew the American dream, he does need to address those fears in the American people tonight.
Right, Jessica. In fact, we have live visuals and earlier shots coming in as well. Donald Trump, we understand, has arrived at the Capitol around 8:45 p.m. local time to deliver his joint address to the Congress. In fact, some House Democrats are using their clothes to make a political statement inside the chamber. Jessica, we can see many members of the Democratic Women's Caucus. They're wearing pink. Other Democratic lawmakers are wearing blue and yellow in support of Ukraine. We also are understanding that over 100 protesters have gathered outside the Capitol before this address.
There certainly have been protesters even outside our building, which is just a couple of blocks away from the Capitol.
Right.
And they have been talking about the federal job cut. So yes, there are protesters on a number of fronts, but specifically this community, of course, has so many hundreds of thousands of federal workers. That's a key issue for the listener, the American listener that's right here in his backyard.
Well, as Jessica Stone is reporting,
I believe he's coming into
Washington.
the House chamber right now, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, Jessica, as you mentioned, Trump plans to tout 100 executive orders and 400 executive actions as evidence of his swift and unrelenting action in this upcoming address. We understand that Donald Trump has reached the Capitol and is expected to enter the chamber any moment now. In fact, while he plans to tout these 100 executive orders, you can see inside the chamber, J.D. Vance has already arrived. His wife, Usha Vance, who he met in law school, is also there. Of course, you know that her Indian origin roots have made the headlines time and again. As far as Zelensky is concerned, I must also inform our viewers that in the last few hours, we have seen a bit of a shift in tone. Zelensky has proposed a possible peace plan to end this war in Ukraine, saying he is willing to work constructively under Donald Trump's strong leadership and to sign a deal giving the U.S. access to his country's mineral wealth. This is an attempt to mend fences with Washington, many analysts point out, after Trump abruptly suspended supplies of military aid, as we extensively covered. Zelensky has now said that he is ready to come to the negotiating table as soon as possible. This is being seen as an extraordinary turnaround because late last evening, both sides appear to be close to signing a critical minerals deal that the White House has indicated is a precursor to peace talks. As per reports, the White House has underlined the chaotic nature as well. They've acknowledged this. Let's just understand from Jessica where things stand as far as Kyiv and Washington are concerned. Jessica, take us through the latest developments in the last 24 hours.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride, right? Because in the morning, our time, of course, it's almost 9 o'clock, just quarter after 9 here. The day began with the announcement of the pause of military aid from Washington to Kyiv. We then saw reaction from Zelensky and talking about how he regretted what happened on Friday on a social media post, as you mentioned, talking about being willing to sign this critical minerals deal, lining up security guarantees from Europe, and really positioning himself to largely meet the demands, except for perhaps a public apology, which the Trump White House also wanted, in order to appear much more willing to come to the to Washington's side of things. At the same time, we saw Washington line up some easing of the pressure on Moscow, including easing the cyber operations against Moscow. That was a decision by Pete Hegseth, announced and reported by NBC. They are trying to bring both parties to the table by easing some of the difficulties on the Moscow side and bringing Ukraine to the understanding that there really is a different ethos in the White House now, that there is a definite change not only in tone but in direction of what this White House wants to accomplish, and moving quick is part of it. I believe we are hearing him now be announced. He will be walking in, most likely saying hi, and here we go. He's coming in behind the Sergeant of Arms inside the House chamber. You can hear the Sergeant of Arms announcing his presence, and he will come in and likely shake a few hands along the way. Senator John Thune, the Majority Leader, standing behind him. There's his wife looking on, Melania Trump, the First Lady. And remember, for a lot of members of Congress, this is an emotional moment because this is a president that some of them blame for what happened on January 6, 2021, when there were rioters inside the Capitol. This is the first time President Trump has been back to Capitol Hill since the end of his time in his first term. And he has come back with the mandate, he would say, from the American people, and also a different approach to how to execute the promises he made on the campaign trail. Much more deliberate, much more planned out, much less chaotic, I can say from firsthand experience, having covered the first Trump administration,
right,
and yet moving quickly like a freight train. And he wants everyone to know that that is intentional. He will talk about that tonight, as you alluded to in those excerpts, 100 executive orders, 400 executive actions. he is very proud of how fast his White House is moving in these first 100 days.
Well, as we are discussing, Jessica, Trump's first 7 weeks in office have been contentious. He has imposed steep tariffs on Canada and Mexico, drawn alarm from allies by freezing military aid to Ukraine, and dramatically reshaped the federal government through mass layoffs and budget cuts under the Department of Government Efficiency, which you know is led by Elon Musk. He is expected to outline his strategy in just a few moments for bringing the war in Ukraine to a close, curbing inflation in the United States, and also accelerating deportation efforts, which is a central campaign promise of his. Meanwhile, as Jessica is also reporting, he's expected to tout 100 executive orders, a few hundred executive actions as well. And we are expecting to hear in terms of the minerals deal as well tonight on the Ukraine front. In a few moments from now, we will hear from the US president. But Jessica, in terms of where his first lady is also positioned, we're hearing that she's taking a seat next to victims of deepfake for porn revenge. She also, in fact, made her trip to the Capitol on Monday to advocate for a bill protecting people from non-consensual intimate images online.
Yeah, this is her first foray into having her initiatives in this White House term. And this is an issue that's close to her heart and something that she wants to pursue. It is a very specific issue compared to some of the other things that other first ladies have pursued. But she is certainly going to make that something that's an issue. And I would say that parts of that are going to resonate with the American people. We have so many people who have been adversely affected by social media, by things that have been put out and images that have been put out and videos put out on social media and on the internet. So I suspect that piece of it at least will resonate with folks. I do want to come back to his remarks, though. He is going to really start off with a lot of bombast and a lot of pride in what he says he's accomplished so far. He will say, we are just getting started. I returned to this chamber tonight to report that America's momentum is back. Our spirit is back. Our pride is back. Our confidence is back. And the American dream is surging bigger and better than ever before. The American dream is unstoppable. And our country is on the verge of a comeback, the likes of which the world has never witnessed, and perhaps will never witness again.
Right. Donald Trump plans to tout 100 executive orders and 400 executive actions, as Jessica Stone is reporting live from Washington, D.C. This will be presented as evidence of his swift and unrelenting action. In fact, the speech is expected to hit heavily on the economy, criticizing his predecessor's handling of inflation, and arguing that a big part of his administration's solution is rapidly reducing the cost of energy. Donald Trump is expected to start in a few moments. Listen in to what's happening inside the chamber.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's a great honor. Thank you very much. Speaker Johnson, Vice President Vance, the First Lady of the United States, members of the United States Congress, thank you very much. And to my fellow citizens, America is back. 6 weeks ago, I stood beneath the dome of this Capitol and proclaimed the dawn of the golden age of America. From that moment on, it has been nothing but swift and unrelenting action to usher in the greatest and most successful era in the history of our country. We have accomplished more in 43 days than most administrations accomplished in 4 years or 8 years, and we are just getting started. I return to this chamber tonight to report that America's momentum is back, our spirit is back, our pride is back, our confidence is back, and the American dream is surging bigger and better than ever before. The American dream is unstoppable, and our country is on the verge of a comeback, the likes of which the world has never witnessed and perhaps will never witness again. There's never been anything like it. The presidential election of November 5th was a mandate like has not been seen in many decades. We won all 7 swing states, giving us an electoral college victory of 312 votes. We won the popular vote by big numbers and won counties in our country. And won counties in our country, 2,700 to 525, on a map that reads almost completely red for Republican. Now, for the first time in modern history, more Americans believe that our country is headed in the right direction than the wrong direction. In fact, it's an astonishing record, 27-point swing, the most ever. Likewise, small business optimism saw its single largest one-month gain ever recorded, a 41-point jump.
Members are directed to uphold and maintain decorum in the House and to cease any further disruptions. That's your warning. Members are engaging in willful and continuing breach of decorum, and the chair is prepared to direct the Sergeant-at-Arms to restore order to the joint session. Mr. Green, take your seat. Take your seat, sir. Take your seat. Finding that members continue to engage in willful and concerted disruption of proper decorum, the chair now directs the Sergeant-at-Arms to restore order. Remove this gentleman from the chamber. Members are directed to uphold and maintain decorum in the House. Mr. President, you continue.
Thank you. Over the past 6 weeks, I have signed nearly 100 executive orders and taken more than 400 executive actions, a record to restore common sense, safety, optimism, and wealth all across our wonderful land. The people elected me to do the job, and I'm doing it. In fact, it has been stated by many that the first month of our presidency, it's our presidency, is the most successful in the history of our nation. By many. And what makes it even more impressive is that, do you know who number 2 is? George Washington. How about that? How about that? I don't know about that list, but we'll take it. Within hours of taking the oath of office, I declared a national emergency on our southern border, and I deployed the U.S. military and Border Patrol to repel the invasion of our country. And what a job they've done. As a result, illegal border crossings last month were by far the lowest ever recorded, ever. They heard my words and they chose not to come. Much easier that way. In comparison, under Joe Biden, the worst president in American history, there were hundreds of thousands of illegal crossings a month, and virtually all of them, including murderers, drug dealers, gang members, and people from mental institutions and insane asylums, were released into our country. Who would want to do that? This is my 5th such speech to Congress. And once again, I look at the Democrats in front of me, and I realize there is absolutely nothing I can say to make them happy or to make them stand or smile or applaud. Nothing I can do. I could find a cure to the most devastating disease, a disease that would wipe out entire nations, or announce the answers to the greatest economy in history, or the stoppage of crime to the lowest levels ever recorded. And these people sitting right here will not clap, will not stand, and certainly will not cheer for these astronomical achievements. They won't do it, no matter what. Five times I've been up here. It's very sad, and it just shouldn't be this way. So Democrats sitting before me, for just this one night, why not join us in celebrating so many incredible wins for America? For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again. Every day, my administration is fighting to deliver the change America needs to bring a future that America deserves, and we're doing it. This is a time for big dreams and bold action. Upon taking office, I imposed an immediate freeze on all federal hiring, a freeze on all new federal regulations, and a freeze on all foreign aid. I terminated the ridiculous Green New Scam. I withdrew from the unfair Paris Climate Accord, which was costing us trillions of dollars that other countries were not paying. I withdrew from the corrupt World Health Organization. And I also withdrew from the anti-American UN Human Rights Council. We ended all of Biden's environmental restrictions that were making our country far less safe and totally unaffordable. And importantly, we ended the last administration's insane electric vehicle mandate, saving our auto workers and companies from economic destruction. To unshackle our economy, I have directed that for every one new regulation, 10 old regulations must be eliminated, just like I did in my very successful first term. And in that first term, we set records on ending unnecessary rules and regulations like no other president had done before. We ordered all federal workers to return to the office. They will either show up for work in person or be removed from their job. And we've ended weaponized government where, as an example, a sitting president is allowed to viciously prosecute his political opponent, like me. How did that work out? Not too good. Not too good. And I have stopped all government censorship and brought back free speech in America. It's back. And 2 days ago, I signed an order making English the official language of the United States of America. I renamed the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. And likewise, I renamed, for a great president, William McKinley, Mount McKinley again. Beautiful Alaska. We love Alaska. We've ended the tyranny of so-called diversity, equity, and inclusion policies all across the entire federal government and indeed the private sector and our military. And our country will be woke no longer. We believe that whether you are a doctor, an accountant, a lawyer, or an air traffic controller, you should be hired and promoted based on skill and competence, not race or gender. Very important. You should be hired based on merit. And the Supreme Court, in a brave and very powerful decision, has allowed us to do so. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. We have removed the poison of critical race theory from our public schools, and I signed an order making it the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female. I also signed an executive order to ban men from playing in women's sports. Three years ago, Peyton McNabb was an all-star high school athlete, one of the best, preparing for a future in college sports. But when her girls' volleyball match was invaded by a male, he smashed the ball so hard in Peyton's face, causing traumatic brain injury, partially paralyzing her right side and ending her athletic career. It was a shot like she's never seen before. She's never seen anything like it. Peyton is here tonight in the gallery, and Peyton, from now on, schools will kick the men off the girls' team, or they will lose all federal funding. And if you really want to see numbers, just take a look at what happened in the women's boxing, weightlifting, track and field, swimming, or cycling, where a male recently finished a long-distance race 5 hours and 14 minutes ahead of a woman for a new record by 5 hours. Broke the record by 5 hours. It's demeaning for women, and it's very bad for our country. We're not going to put up with it any longer. What I have just described is only a small fraction of the common sense revolution that is now, because of us, sweeping the entire world. Common sense has become a common theme, and we will never go back. Never. Never going to let that happen. Among my very highest priorities is to rescue our economy and get dramatic and immediate relief to working families. As you know, we inherited from the last administration an economic catastrophe and an inflation nightmare. Their policies drove up energy prices, pushed up grocery costs, and drove the necessities of life out of reach for millions and millions of Americans. They've never had anything like it. We suffered the worst inflation in 48 years, but perhaps even in the history of our country. They're not sure. As president, I'm fighting every day to reverse this damage and make America affordable again. Joe Biden especially let the price of eggs get out of control. The egg price is out of control, and we're working hard to get it back down. Secretary, do a good job on that. You inherited a total mess from the previous administration. Do a good job. A major focus of our fight to defeat inflation is rapidly reducing the cost of energy. The previous administration cut the number of new oil and gas leases by 95%, slowed pipeline construction to a halt, and closed more than 100 power plants. We are opening up many of those power plants right now. And frankly, we have never seen anything like it. That's why on my first day in office, I declared a national energy emergency. As you've heard me say many times, we have more liquid gold under our feet than any nation on earth, and by far. And now I fully authorize the most talented team ever assembled to go and get it. It's called Drill, Baby, Drill. My administration is also working on a gigantic natural gas pipeline in Alaska, among the largest in the world, where Japan, South Korea, and other nations want to be our partner with investments of trillions of dollars each. There's never been anything like that one. It will be truly spectacular. It's all set to go. The permitting is gotten. And later this week, I will also take historic action to dramatically expand production of critical minerals and rare earths here in the USA. To further combat inflation, we will not only be reducing the cost of energy, but will be ending the flagrant waste of taxpayer dollars. And to that end, I have created the brand new Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE. Perhaps you've heard of it. Perhaps. Which is headed by Elon Musk, who is in the gallery tonight. Thank you, Elon. He's working very hard. He didn't need this. He didn't need this. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Everybody here, even this side, appreciates it, I believe. They just don't want to admit that. Just listen to some of the appalling waste we have already identified. $22 billion from HHS to provide free housing and cars for illegal aliens. $45 million for diversity, equity, and inclusion scholarships in Burma. $40 million to improve the social and economic inclusion of sedentary migrants. Nobody knows what that is. $8 million to promote LGBTQI+ in the African nation of Lesotho, which nobody has ever heard of. $60 million for indigenous peoples and Afro-Colombian empowerment in Central America. $60 million. $8 million for making mice transgender. This is real. $32 million for a left-wing propaganda operation in Moldova. $10 million for male circumcision in Mozambique. $20 million for the Arab Sesame Street in the Middle East. It's a program. $20 million for a program. $1.9 billion to recently created Decarbonization of Homes Committee, headed up, and we know she's involved. Just at the last moment, the money was passed over by a woman named Stacey Abrams. Have you ever heard of her? A $3.5 million consulting contract for lavish fish monitoring. $1.5 million for voter confidence in Liberia. $14 million for social cohesion in Mali. $59 million for illegal alien hotel rooms in New York City. He's a real estate developer. He's done very well. $250,000 to increase vegan local climate action innovation in Zambia. $42 million for social and behavior change in Uganda. $14 million for improving public procurement in Serbia. $47 million for improving learning outcomes in Asia. Asia's doing very well with learning. We know what we're doing. We should use it ourselves. And $101 million for DEI contracts at the Department of Education, the most ever paid, nothing even like it. Under the Trump administration, all of these scams, and they're far worse, but I didn't think it was appropriate to talk about them. They're so bad. Many more have been found out and exposed and swiftly terminated by a group of very intelligent, mostly young people, headed up by Elon, and we appreciate it. We found hundreds of billions of dollars of fraud. And we've taken back the money and reduced our debt to fight inflation and other things. Taken back a lot of that money. We got it just in time. This is just the beginning. The Government Accountability Office, a federal government office, has estimated annual fraud of over $500 billion in our nation, and we are working very hard to stop it. We're going to. We're also identifying shocking levels of incompetence and probable fraud in the Social Security program for our seniors, and that our seniors and people that we love rely on. Believe it or not, government databases list 4.7 million Social Security members from people aged 100 to 109 years old. It lists 3.6 million people from ages 110 to 119. I don't know any of them. I know some people that are rather elderly, but not quite that elderly. 3.47 million people from ages 120 to 129. 3.9 million people from ages 130 to 139. 3.5 million people from ages 140 to 149. And money is being paid to many of them, and we're searching right now. In fact, Pam, good luck. Good luck. You're going to find it. But a lot of money is paid out to people because it just keeps getting paid, and nobody does, and it really hurts Social Security and hurts our country. 1.3 million people from ages 150 to 159, and over 130,000 people, according to the Social Security databases, are age over 160 years old. We have a healthier country than I thought, Bobby. Including, to finish, 1,039 people between the ages of 220 and 229, one person between the age of 240 and 249, and one person is listed at 360 years of age. More than 100 years older than our country. But we're going to find out where that money's going, and it's not going to be pretty. By slashing all of the fraud, waste, and theft we can find, we will defeat inflation, bring down mortgage rates, lower car payments and grocery prices, protect our seniors, and put more money in the pockets of American families. And today, interest rates took a beautiful drop, big, beautiful drop. It's about time. And in the near future, I want to do what has not been done in 24 years, balance the federal budget. We're going to balance it. With that goal in mind, we have developed in great detail what we are calling the Gold Card, which goes on sale very, very soon. For $5 million, we will allow the most successful job-creating people from all over the world to buy a path to U.S. citizenship. It's like the green card, but better and more sophisticated. And these people will have to pay tax in our country. They won't have to pay tax from where they came. The money that they've made, you wouldn't want to do that, but they have to pay tax, create jobs. They'll also be taking people out of colleges and paying for them so that we can keep them in our country instead of having them being forced out. Number one, at the top school, as an example, being forced out and not being allowed to stay and create tremendous numbers of jobs and great success for a company out there. So while we take out the criminals, killers, traffickers, and child predators who are allowed to enter our country under the open border policy of these people, the Democrats, the Biden administration, the open border insane policies that you've allowed to destroy our country, we will now bring in brilliant, hardworking, job-creating people. They're going to pay a lot of money, and we're going to reduce our debt with that money. Americans have given us a mandate for bold and profound change. In nearly 100 years, the federal bureaucracy has grown until it has crushed our freedoms, ballooned our deficits, and held back America's potential in every possible way. The nation founded by pioneers and risk-takers now drowns under millions and millions of pages of regulations and debt. Approvals that should take 10 days to get instead take 10 years, 15 years, and even 20 years before you're rejected. Meanwhile, we have hundreds of thousands of federal workers who have not been showing up to work. My administration will reclaim power from this unaccountable bureaucracy, and we will restore true democracy to America again. Any federal bureaucrat who resists this change will be removed from office immediately. Because we are draining the swamp. It's very simple. And the days of rule by unelected bureaucrats are over. And the next phase of our plan to deliver the greatest economy in history is for this Congress to pass tax cuts for everybody. They're in there. They're waiting for you to vote. And I'm sure that the people on my right, I don't mean the Republican right, but my right here, I'm sure you're going to vote for those tax cuts, because otherwise I don't believe the people will ever vote you into office. So I'm doing you a big favor by telling you that. But I know this group is going to be voting for the tax. Thank you. It's a very, very big part of our plan. We had tremendous success in our first term with it. A very big part of our plan. We're seeking permanent income tax cuts all across the board. And to get urgently needed relief to Americans hit especially hard by inflation, I'm calling for no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security benefits for our great seniors. And I also want to make interest payments on car loans tax deductible, but only if the car is made in America. And by the way, we're going to have growth in the auto industry like nobody's ever seen. Plants are opening up all over the place. Deals are being made. Never seen. That's a combination of the election win and tariffs. It's a beautiful word, isn't it? That, along with our other policies, will allow our auto industry to absolutely boom. It's going to boom. Spoke to the majors today, all three, the top people, and they're so excited. In fact, already numerous car companies have announced that they will be building massive automobile plants in America, with Honda just announcing a new plant in Indiana, one of the largest anywhere in the world. And this has taken place since our great victory on November 5th, a date which will hopefully go down as one of the most important in the history of our country. In addition, as part of our tax cuts, we want to cut taxes on domestic production and all manufacturing. And just as we did before, we will provide 100% expensing. It will be retroactive to January 20th, 2025. And it was one of the main reasons why our tax cuts were so successful in our first term, giving us the most successful economy in the history of our country. First term. We had a great first term.
I've been reporting on all issues, big and small, from Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, rest of South India, bringing you all the action, all that you need to know, all that you want to know.
The energy of maximum city is infectious. I bring in that energy in our news coverage from financial capital Mumbai.
Covering from the southernmost part of India over the last 23 years, I bring in-depth and 360-degree coverage from the Dravidian heartland.
The land of Mishti is also known for its bitter politics. I have seen much water flow under the Howrah Bridge, covering Bengal in all its vivid colors.
Ladies and gentlemen, NDTV's prestigious Auto Awards 2025, they're here.
Congratulations to those who are being honored, recognized.
Vikram Pava, Rahul Bharti, Maruti Suzuki, the Global Lifetime Achievement Award to Sri Ratan Tata.
Motorcycle of the Year.
Compact Car of the Year.
In today's interconnected world, India's voice is more crucial than ever. When India speaks, the world listens. At NDTV World, we are that voice, bringing you intelligent and insightful news from India and beyond. From geopolitics and diplomacy to economic shifts, migrations, tech disruptions, and the stories of our diaspora. We cover the news that shapes our global future. NDTV World, your new home for global news, is here.
I've been reporting on all issues, big and small, from Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, rest of South India, bringing you all the action, all that you need to know, all that you want to know.
The energy of maximum city is infectious. I bring in that energy in our news coverage from financial capital Mumbai.
Covering from the southernmost part of India over the last 23 years, I bring in-depth and 360-degree coverage from the Dravidian heartland.
The land of Mishti is also known for its bitter politics. I have seen much water flow under the Howrah Bridge, covering Bengal in all its vivid colors.
Fentanyl to come into our country at levels never seen before, killing hundreds of thousands of our citizens and many very young, beautiful people, destroying families. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. They are, in effect, receiving subsidies of hundreds of billions of dollars. We pay subsidies to Canada and to Mexico of hundreds of billions of dollars, and the United States will not be doing that any longer. We're not going to do it any longer. Thanks to our America First policies we're putting into place, we have had $1.7 trillion of new investment in America in just the past few weeks. The combination of the election and our economic policies that people of SoftBank, one of the most brilliant anywhere in the world, announced a $200 billion investment. OpenAI and Oracle, Larry Ellison, announced $500 billion investment, which they wouldn't have done if Kamala had won. Apple announced $500 billion investment. Tim Cook called me. He said, I cannot spend it fast enough. It's going to be much higher than that, I believe. They'll be building their plants here instead of in China. And just yesterday, Taiwan Semiconductor, the biggest in the world, most powerful in the world, has a tremendous amount, 97% of the market, announced a $165 billion investment to build the most powerful chips on earth right here in the USA. And we're not giving them any money. Your CHIPS Act is a horrible, horrible thing. We give hundreds of billions of dollars, and it doesn't mean a thing. They take our money and they don't spend it. All that meant to them, we're giving them no money. All that was important to them was they didn't want to pay the tariffs, so they came and they're building, and many other companies are coming. We don't have to give them money. We just want to protect our businesses and our people. And they will come because they won't have to pay tariffs if they build in America. So it's very amazing. You should get rid of the CHIP Act, and whatever's left over, Mr. Speaker, you should use it to reduce debt or any other reason you want to. Our new trade policy will also be great for the American farmer. I love the farmer. Who will now be selling into our home market, the USA, because nobody is going to be able to compete with you. Because there's goods that come in from other countries and companies, they're really in a bad position in so many different ways. They're uninspected. They may be very dirty and disgusting, and they come in and they pour in, and they hurt our American farmers. The tariffs will go on agricultural product coming into America, and our farmers, starting on April 2nd, it may be a little bit of an adjustment period. We had that before when I made the deal with China, $50 billion of purchases, and I said, just bear with me, and they did. They did. Probably have to bear with me again, and this will be even better. That was great. The problem with it was that Biden didn't enforce it. He didn't enforce it. $50 billion of purchases, and we were doing great, but Biden did not enforce it, and it hurt our farmers. But our farmers are going to have a field day right now. So to our farmers, have a lot of fun. I love you too. I love you too. It's all going to happen. And I have also imposed a 25% tariff on foreign aluminum, copper, lumber, and steel, because if we don't have, as an example, steel and lots of other things, we don't have a military, and frankly, we just won't have a country very long. Here today is a proud American steelworker, fantastic person from Decatur, Alabama, Jeff Denard. Has been working at the same steel plant for 27 years in a job that has allowed him to serve as the captain of his local volunteer fire department, raised 7 children with his beautiful wife, Nicole, and over the years provide a loving home for more than 40 foster children. So great, Jeff. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Jeff. Stories like Jeff's remind us that tariffs are not just about protecting American jobs. They're about protecting the soul of our country. Tariffs are about making America rich again and making America great again, and it's happening, and it will happen rather quickly. There'll be a little disturbance, but we're okay with that. It won't be much. No, you're not. Oh. And look where Biden took us, very low, the lowest we've ever been. Jeff, I want to thank you very much, and I also want to recognize another person who has devoted herself to foster care community. She works so hard on it. A very loving person, our magnificent First Lady of the United States.